Hey, this is Danny Eny with Firepole Marketing, and you're listening to Stephanie O'Brien's Moved by Purpose podcast.
And so that season was really a full-packed season for us, Stephanie. We have 2-hour daily commute. I was working full-time. I was mom to 4 kids. And in the year that we were paying off all this debt, which means we were working a lot too, in other jobs, I wrote 3 books that hit Amazon's top 100 category.
Are you longing to know what your purpose is? Are you on the wrong career path? Do you feel like there must be more to life? Don't worry, there's hope. It's time to be moved by purpose. Now your host, Stephanie O'Brien.
You are listening to the Moved by Purpose podcast, and I am excited to introduce today's guest, Jen McDonough. She comes from an incredible background and has a really amazing and inspiring story. She found herself living a life of fear when her son was diagnosed with a lifetime medical condition. And they were devastated as a family, both financially and emotionally. During this very painful, embarrassing, and fearful time, they went through many obstacles in not only their finances, but also in their relationships, health, and jobs. Using the strategies learned from being an athletic champion, Jen was able to create incredible outcomes. Her story could go to reach people through local, national, and international media, including being featured in a German documentary film. Today, Jen assists in building stronger organizations, communities, and families by helping first responders become their strongest selves using her 20-plus years experiences. Welcome to the show, Jen. I am so pumped to have you on today.
Oh my gosh, Stephanie, thanks for having me on today. It's an honor.
So my first question that I ask every guest is for you to give us a background of your work history and what led you to starting the business that you are working on right now.
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks for asking. I worked in the medical field, administration field for Stephanie, over 20 years, and I absolutely loved it. I was super passionate about it, was really devoted to it, and it really had a lot of my identity wrapped around kind of that world, getting to serve physicians and people such as nurses and staff in a role that helped them serve the communities. And back a few years ago, I was crushed and devastated when outside changes, legislative changes, changed the world of medicine. And so unfortunately, our place of business closed after being in business for over 30 years. We were one of the largest private practice groups here in Minnesota, and it was just kind of a shock that this happened. But after that happened, I really found ourselves in a lot of fear and uncertainty. At the time, we were paying off a lot of debt. Our family is known for paying off over $212,000 worth of debt and medical expenses in 4 years. And so we were going through this time where we really relied on that second income. And plus, being that I love this job, I thought, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to find something that I love again? But I thought, you know what, go into it with an open heart and try something new. I was fortunate in the fact that I had, like you, found a mentor and friend in Dan Miller and started following his processes and how to do a job search, how to find that passion in what you love. And after a very, for the most part, short job search, and in fact, one more thing to this was in 2010, Stephanie, during a very down market. So I was very blessed during that time to get not only 3 very nice job offers to pick from, but also I had quite a few first interviews set up, several second interviews. So I really, because of that search being really intentional, had my choice of where I wanted to go, which we felt really blessed because we were, quite frankly, scared out of our minds at the prospect of not having that income. So I decided to try the corporate world, Stephanie, and oh my gosh, I thought, what's What is wrong with me? Here is a job that over 600 applicants went for. I felt really blessed to get this job. I got a raise. The benefits were unheard of. It was just outrageous, this job offer that I had. It felt like, wow, I won the lottery. But when I got into it, I was like, I don't get it. I don't get it. And every day I would go to work and I'm like, I don't understand. And I kept questioning what's wrong with me. And that's when it really led me to discovering what my passion and purpose was. And it really came from a point of pain. I mean, there were some days, literally, Stephanie, that I would go running out of the building thinking, I'm going to have a heart attack. It's like one of those dreams that you have where the hallway is really long and you're running and the doorway's not getting there. And I remembered several times literally going into panic attack where my heart rate was racing, I was sweating, and I was like, just about, I felt like I had run a marathon by the time I got out those doors, huffing and puffing. I was like, I can't do this. I can't live like this.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that can relate. I know that because there are people that write in explaining very similar situations, and they just need to get out and they just need a change, but they're just so overwhelmed with emotions, really. They feel like you were asking, what's wrong with me?
What's wrong with me? And then you have people around you who are in that environment looking at you like, yeah, what is wrong with you? So you're like, oh, it's me.
Yeah. Well, especially in, the mind games that had to have been, you had to put yourself through or have gone through, which is, I'm great. I'm lucky to have this job. I'm lucky to have this job in this kind of economy. There's plenty of people out there that don't have any work. That's at least how I thought. You should be grateful for this. And the guilt trip and the lashing that I put myself through was just very brutal, in addition to already having all of these discontent feelings as it was.
Yeah, exactly. And what made it kind of to top this off with the cherry on the cake is my husband actually worked for this company. It's a Fortune 500 company. It's a fabulous company, but he's worked there for 30 years. And so we would ride share together, and he would look at me like, yeah, what's wrong with you? I don't understand. And he made the remark to me one day, Stephanie, I've gotten so negative without even knowing it, and I'm a pretty positive person. But he looked at me one day and he said, wow, I never knew my place of work was so bad until you started here.
Uh-oh.
And I was like, whoa, here I'm thinking I'm holding it in, I'm toughing it out. But obviously I was letting stuff leak out onto my family. That wasn't very nice. I was kind of vomiting my unhappiness over them, apparently.
So what did you do to get out of that hot mess?
Well, I had to really look at the situation and say, hey, how are you wired, Jen McDonough? Because you're tempted to look around at your work and go, what's wrong with these people? What's wrong with this environment? If they'd only change. But sometimes we forget to look within, and that's definitely something that I hadn't done up until that point, because I had always had a job that I loved. I didn't understand how you couldn't live in your passion. And I just thought that was the normal way that you go about it. And so not having that taken away, I felt really cheated. And I wanted to blame outside things on that. But when in fact it was really inside how my core being was. And that was the discovery to seeing how, I'm wired at my core. And when I started doing that, Stephanie, it really helped me to understand how my husband is wired, how my kids are wired, how those around me are wired. And it helped me see, oh, this is why I react this way. And it really helped me in our relationship as a husband and wife, as well as a mom, to understand, oh, here's why my kids or husband act this way, because we all have different things that set our fear triggers off in how we're wired. And my fear trigger was definitely being pushed on a daily basis. And by my fear trigger being pushed, I unknowingly was pushing my husband's because I was like, I'm out of here. I'm so out of here. And, meanwhile, we're paying off all this debt, and I was pushing for his fear. His is losing his security. And I was definitely pushing those fear triggers, and then he was coming back, and it wasn't a great situation. So really that journey to discovering how I was wired and discover, no, there's nothing wrong with you, and there's nothing wrong with this work environment. You're just not wired to be here. And so how do we figure out how to put me back in an environment that's thriving and passionate, and really discovering what my purpose was?
Yeah. And I think definitely knowing how you're wired is key, really. And it's amazing how many people don't really necessarily know or have all that much clarity on how they're wired. And for me, it was really liberating to take the DISC assessment, and seeing that on paper, it was really funny because I'm like, wow. I mean, I know it's a computerized assessment, but like it put to words and articulated pretty on point with how I was and my preferences, and getting rid of, for me, I used to felt like there was something wrong with me, or would feel guilty for behaving a certain way when there were other people that were so different. And so I would admire someone that was just really analytical and logical and just really had a lot of foresight and planned and organized. And, I would like try to do that. And I was so miserable at it because that wasn't my strength. That's not how I'm wired. I'm not sure you can develop those. But, I was in a position where it required a ton of organization and sitting there and analyzing things. And it just was a terrible fit for who I am or how I'm wired. And it does increase once you realize how you're wired. You acknowledge the differences in other people. And for me, it can really help improve relationships as well, when you get clear on who you are and then start seeing other people for their strengths and what they bring to the table.
Instead of irritations.
Yes. Yeah, instead of them irritating you, you're like, okay, that's good. That's their sweet spot, or that's their strength. And you can start really partnering powerfully as a team to meet goals when you start putting people in the right place, and even as a family too. Like you mentioned, acknowledging how your kids are wired. And I mean, it's all very beneficial. People have written in and have said how their marriages have gotten stronger, or they started getting breakthroughs in their relationship with their own kids because they started using the knowledge of the DISC to really help them strengthen their strengths, really, instead of constantly working on weaknesses.
It's funny if someone would say, hey, to me years ago, Jen, put down the going out to eat one Friday night and just take the DISC profile, spend the $30-$40, whatever it is, and just get it done. It's like, oh my gosh, all the trauma I would have saved in these times of transition. Because I think anytime you're going after something you're passionate about, you're going to come across barriers. You're going to come across, people around you that maybe don't see the same light, and you feel like they're bringing you down. But if you just understand that core being of who you are, man, it's so powerful.
Yes. So you mentioned fear and fear triggers, and the DISC does mention some fear triggers, but there's also fears that seem very, very real to people when it comes to transitioning, that for somebody that has their secure, steady paycheck, letting that go scares them, and so they'll latch onto it. But there's a lot of limited thinking in that alone. What were some of the fears, if you had any, that were holding you back? Or with your work with other people, what are a lot of fears you see in other people that keep them stuck?
Well, I know for myself, it was a self-limiting barrier belief, that fear of, can I do this? I know there's other people doing it, but it's so always tempting to say, well, they can do it because they're fearless, or they've done this before, they've got that. And I think when we start looking at people in that light, it's really a form of hiding that we ourselves are doing. We're putting excuses in our way, and we're putting our own barriers in our way, those self-limiting beliefs. So just recognizing that and seeing when we start to look at our fears, start to really see what they are. For our situation, it was really my husband that I was concerned about. I'm more of the entrepreneurial type, very wired that way. My husband sees definitely getting that steady paycheck as a way to stay secure. And I guess having gone through this process and having been let go from a job that I was really passionate about, that I never thought, this business could run without me, stepping back, having that taken away from me really showed me that, every place can run without you. And in fact, it doesn't matter where we work. Nothing's totally secure. And whether you're getting a paycheck from somebody or you're earning that paycheck through the entrepreneurial thing, it's really a way of how we see that. So I used to look at a job, paycheck, getting that paycheck every 2 weeks or every month as being totally secure. And now I look at it in a much different light. I look at it and say, that's one customer basically you're selling to, because basically we are all selling every day of our lives, whether we're working for ourselves or working for someone. And if I'm not pleasing that one client, I'm out the door. Whereas the business I'm doing today through speaking and coaching, if I don't please that one customer, that's one customer out of 100 customers. And so to me, I see that as much more secure. But it took a while to kind of go through that process and that journey to see it in that light of sorts, Stephanie. But knowing that I'm wired how I am and knowing that how my husband is wired, I understand, kind of our thoughts and processes along that. So I'm real careful when it comes to certain ways and how I approach things, to be very respectful of my husband and how he is wired. And in turn, he's very respectful of how I'm wired. But it took us a while to get to that point.
We'll get back to the show after this quick announcement. Want to know the secret behind the people that have built successful 6-figure and 7-figure businesses? I know I sure was wondering what that was. Of all the entrepreneurs I have interviewed, all of them have invested in their training and in the success of other people. So what is the fastest way to grow your business? You probably guessed it right if you've been paying any attention to any of the leading experts out there, and that is by joining a mastermind group. The best mastermind groups require a financial investment. This ensures the commitment of every member in the group. The free ones just do not have the commitment from the members. They have inconsistent attendance, which ends up being a waste of everyone's time. If you want to rapidly grow your business, it just won't happen if you do not invest any money. I hate to break it to you, but the businesses that grow the fastest are due to the fact that people have invested in their own personal and business development. They have invested in a mastermind group, hired coaches, paid for trainings, marketing, a supportive team to delegate and offload the responsibilities. It is a fact that you cannot build your business alone. Without the feedback, input, and idea sharing or brainstorming of other business-minded people, you will not see the success you are hoping to see anytime soon. Who is looking at your sales copy, your website, marketing flyers? If it's a friend or a family member, do they own their own businesses? Who is helping you process through and solidify networking strategies and rocking that sales process? What about the pricing on your packages? I cover all of these business boosting techniques and strategies in my mastermind group. So join my mastermind group to learn all the strategies, secrets, resources, and share ideas that will get you transitioned out of your day job in a year. This group is for people who are already clear on their business idea and are hustling to make things happen. This group will just speed up the success and boost your profits. At a bargain price of $250 a month, you will not find any other mastermind group out there like this that has the amount of training and coaching made available to you. Think you can't afford that? Trust me, you really cannot afford not to. Home study programs, books, and consuming free podcasts and blogs will only get you so far. Building your business with a group of committed members is the missing key to your business success. Don't delay. Register today and get a $50 off per month bonus. There are some people that really seem to have much more peace with knowing what's going to be coming in every 2 weeks or every week, and they can just sleep better at night with that. And for me, that doesn't seem to matter as much. For me, I would rather be doing work that I love and being fulfilled in that than clinging on to the stability or security of a paycheck and not being fulfilled and not doing what I love. So, but there is wisdom with a transition and how to do it right. And so if you, like you built your business around your day job, and I have done that too. And that can be a tough, challenging season to be patient and continue doing something you're less than thrilled about doing in the first place, and then building something up that you're really passionate about. I don't know if you ended up staying in that job you didn't like, or did you find something else?
Well, as I mentioned, we were in the throes of paying off debt. So we had, stuff going on medically with our son that we had mountains of medical bills facing us. We had mountains of debt, and it kind of felt like the perfect storm, like, oh my gosh, we need this money, we're going to lose everything if we don't have it, is what it felt like. And so realizing that, as you said, it's a season really helped in getting through that time to stay resilient. So what we did for our own families, we mapped out a goal and said, okay, we're going to pay off all our debt. And once we pay off all our debt, we're going to save up a little money. And in the meantime, I'm going to build this business and actually prove that, yes, I can make income. This isn't a fly-by-night thing. And so that season was really a full-packed season for us, Stephanie. We have 2-hour daily commute. I was working full-time. I was mom to 4 kids. And in the year that we were paying off all this debt, which means we were working a lot too, in other jobs, I wrote 3 books that hit Amazon's top 100 category. And I was learning how to speak and how to build that speaking business. So it was a very full year of being very intentional, but it helped to be building that business on the side to see that, this corporate gig is not a lifetime commitment, and it's a season. It was something that I wanted to look back and say, hey, I did it. Now, I look back on our finance journey, Stephanie, and at the beginning, we were supposed to pay off this debt in 4 long years. It seemed like forever, when in fact, when we look back on it, it only took 48 months. Now, the time is the exact same, whether it's 48 months or 4 years, but that perspective of seeing it in a matter of months really helped. And so, yes, I did leave the corporate gig after almost 4 years, so the same time. So it was nice to be able to look and say, okay, I'm not stuck here. No one's holding me hostage. I have a choice to leave if I want. I can go find another job. But I knew at that point, Stephanie, that no matter where I went, I would find the same thing. And I think a lot of times we get unhappy in a situation and we think, oh, if we just go to the other pasture, we're going to be just fine. When in fact, if we haven't addressed our passions and how we're wired, we're going to find the same problems eventually crop up, and we'll see patterns in our lives occurring around that usually. And so I knew that finding another job would just land me the same thing. And that's not what I wanted. And so realizing that really it was going to be, not 4 long years, but really a matter of months, really helped in staying resilient. Another thing that I was very, very intentional about, besides our time and money and energies, I was very intentional about what I let into my life. So the people that I allowed myself to be around as far as my inner circle, the people I had on my favorite phone lists, the people that I listened to on my podcast, the books that I read, all these things coming in and out were very, very intentional. So instead of having the negative Nellies around me, I chose to surround myself with these people who were either on the same journey as I was, or for those who had already been on the journey that I wanted to be on and were successful.
That is such an important piece, too, of what you allow into your mind and into your space and who you listen to. As I developed and grew on my entrepreneurial journey, I was very protective of what I would give heed to, I guess, like what I would listen and receive as good advice. And I noticed through that process that I eventually just outgrew a lot of former relationships, and I still talk to some of them, but it's a lot more rare now. And there's a distance and a difference between us. And there was a season of kind of grieving that a little bit, but also knowing that at any time, if they wanted to personally develop and grow themselves, that they could get on the journey. But if they wanted to remain negative and to stay complaining and in their limited thought process, that I just couldn't relate to that anymore. I didn't want the victim mentalities and blaming everybody else and thinking that all of the problems were out of my control and that I had no power to bring a solution to it. So, and there's some people that there are many guests, almost every guest has talked about that, the importance of what you allow into your mind and who you talk to. And I think some people kind of freeze up and get a little scared that they might have to go and just tell their friends they can't be friends with them anymore. And it's not that. It's just, like I said, it's kind of a process where you kind of outgrow them. Eventually, as you grow and get stronger and bigger as a person, you outgrow some old things that you don't need anymore.
Definitely. Another thing that really helped, Stephanie, was, it's easy to self-medicate when we're not happy, through things like overspending, overeating, just really doing destructive things to our lives. But, when you were talking, I was thinking of, there were times I felt really left out on things like, as I was writing these books or being really focused, thinking, gee, I want to be out with, doing something with others. But just knowing that, I'm investing in myself and my family really was helpful. Another thing that I found wonderful was seeing that investment in myself as being an investment. So I was a big proponent and still am of hiring coaches. I want to learn from the people who are the best, and I want to learn how to get from A to B the quickest. And so rather than investing in self-medicating things like going out to eat, overspending, which I love to do, I chose to invest very wisely with coaches that were very successful doing what I wanted to do. And now I'm pretty excited to be on, what I consider the same level as those coaches and where I was. And I continue to invest in coaches and masterminds and really being with people who are continuing to pull that forward.
Yes, that is a really important piece. I mean, it sounds like every entrepreneur that I've had interviewed have really said the same points of the power and importance of investing in yourself. And there are people that will say, well, I can't afford it. I don't have the money to do it. Or I don't have the time. But I love going back to your story, Jen, because I think you squashed the time thing.
Time and money. I mean,
time and money.
Every penny at that point, Stephanie, when we started doing this was going towards paying for our son's medical stuff and paying off debt. And it was the most fearful thing to hand over that first check to a coach to go to that conference. And I remember one coach in particular, I wouldn't let go of the check. And I said, you look me in the eye and tell me I can do this. And he's like, yeah, you can do this, Jen. I said, no, you look me in the eye. You tell me. And then, he's trying to pull on the check and I'm not letting go. And I'm like, you tell me I can do this. He goes, you can do this. And sure enough, it was totally worth it.
Yeah. I've never, I've been in very tight financial bind myself, and I've never regretted investing in conferences or coaching or any type of training. I've never regretted it. I don't look at it as spending money. I look at it as I will get a big return on investment with this. Whether it's immediately I see it or down the road, if I stay consistent and I stay committed to the goal, I will see a return. The return I see immediately is more confidence in myself, being shown that it is quite possible and it's a lot more simple than I made it out to be. The connection, the strong connection with other like-minded people that keeps you going, that support you, that are also cheering you on through the process. All of those things are completely worth it. And then at the end, you have your success. You may have reached the financial goals, or you're finally able to transition out of your job because you've replaced your income and all of that. One of the things I do want to ask you, one final question. Well, there's two I'm going to ask for. People can connect with you. But before that question, for the time where you were building your business around your day job, did you ever fall into maybe a comparison trap of hearing stories of people that were able to build a 7-figure business in 6 months and wonder what's wrong with you?
Yes, just about every day, Stephanie.
Yeah.
And again, it was the same as what I felt in the corporate gig. You think, well, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do it? But, I'm kind of always a little leery whether it's finances or weight loss, where are these people going to be in 10 years? Could be, they're definitely legit, but I don't always find that those quick successes are long-term successes at all. People, if we look at lottery winners, for example, people who have won the big one that, a lot of us are really looking to win, we can see that after, I think it's 2 years, 60% of them are worse off or they're broke after 2 years. If we look at like NBA players, the amount of, professional sports, the amount of people that file bankruptcy, not within a 5-year period is astronomical. So I think sometimes having those, while we all want the quick fixes in life, I want them too. I want that magic pill that's going to drop 100 pounds, sure. But I think when we start looking to that is when we can really get stuck in a trap. And again, that's another form of hiding. And I love your analogy, Stephanie, of just, sticking with it. When you meet with that coach and you set out that plan and you've been with someone who has had long-term success, and you can marinate in that success with them and say, this is where I'm going. I'm going to stay resilient. I'm going to stick to it. And, I'll shift as I need to and I'll adjust as I need to, but I'm not going to be flying off at every sparkly thing that comes my way, because it's so tempting when you're tired. Oh my gosh. I find, especially when you're tired, you're on those days where you're like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm not seeing any return. Those are the days when really those, 7-figure incomes in a month just kind of leap out at you. And it's real tempting to latch on. But I think, going back to the things of taking care of yourself, making sure you're getting enough sleep, that's another key. Surrounding yourself with great people, great things, and really having a plan and sticking to it. Those are the basic things, don't you think?
Yeah, hard work, really.
Yeah.
It's hard work for a long time.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with you if you guys are out there thinking, what's wrong with me? I'm not making 7 figures now.
Right.
You're doing just fine.
There's some people that are like, I'd love to even make $1,000 in a month with my side gig,
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah,
there are
celebrate
people.
those victories, too. That's another big thing. Don't be so harsh on yourself. We're all
Yes.
partial on ourselves, and I still get excited, whenever I do like group coaching things, and that stuff just thrills me when, I get booked for, a keynote. It's still a thrill. It's hard to remember to celebrate, but I think really taking that time to acknowledge it and kind of marinate a little, that's what keeps us going.
Yes, celebrate though. Do not despise the day of small beginnings. That's kind of what I have to remind myself.
Yeah.
It's the small, steady, consistent things that end up adding up to something really big, So, I'm having to remind myself my own words.
I had a coaching call this month where I'm like, oh my gosh, I felt there were some things that I, quote, failed on this month. And one of the things we do in our coaching call is we list out our victories. And man, Stephanie, I had like 7 huge things that happened this month. But all I could focus on were the 1 or 2 things that I didn't feel like went awesome. And I thought, oh, how typical. Like when I meet with coaching clients, it's just so like, duh, can't you see that? But that's the great thing about having those other leaders in our life is they can kind of give us that clarity and saying, hey, stop.
Yes. Stop latching on to the loss or what you don't have and really celebrate all the things that are really going great.
Yeah.
Which can be a challenge when you're working so hard for maybe one big outcome, which might be the day you can finally transition out of your day job and have a sustainable income through your business or something. Yeah. And you're working and working and chugging and working. And it just seems to take forever, but you're not celebrating the 2 people that started noticing you right off the bat, or, and seeing how you are eventually growing platform and getting more and more prospects and things like that. And how just, that's one thing too, is don't be afraid to slow down a bit and kind of look back to see your progress. Check how far you've actually come,
I think when
celebrate.
We do that, we can then appreciate where we are. So it was on those days like, I know I'm going somewhere, that I could appreciate that corporate gig and say, you know what, I'm really grateful for having a really well-paying job that allows me to do this. Mm-hmm. That gratitude, that is so powerful. But it's on the days that we're tired, we're exhausted, we're down on ourselves, we're not celebrating, is the days that we think, oh my gosh, what's wrong with these people? So I just encourage your listeners to keep listening. I love that they're being inspired by you and having that motivation to keep going. That's powerful, Stephanie.
Yes. Well, thank you for agreeing to inspire myself, inspire the listeners. I just love your story. I love your work and what you do. I've really enjoyed watching you evolve too in your business. And so where can people connect with you?
Oh, thanks for asking, Stephanie. Well, you can find me over at theironjen.com, and I serve primarily first responders who are working in high stress situations so that they can serve their markets better. But I also do serve people who are looking to build their speaking business, and you can find me at speakerlistbuild.com, and that's where I help speakers really expand their business by expanding their market.
Mm-hmm. And I have been very fortunate and blessed to have worked with you in that arena. So Jen is definitely rocking it in her speaking business. So I strongly encourage you, if speaking is something you want to do, to connect with her. Well, thank you again, Jen. It was truly, as always, an honor to speak to you. And I gained a lot of value from your story and from your experience.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. Another thing that I found wonderful was seeing that investment in myself as being an investment. So I was a big proponent, and still am, of hiring coaches. I want to learn from the people who are the best, and I want to learn how to get from A to B the quickest. And so rather than investing in self-medicating things like going out to eat, overspending, which I love to do, I chose to invest very wisely with coaches that were very successful doing what I wanted to do.
Well, there you have it. That was The Iron Jen. It's just very inspired by her story. It's always a pleasure to talk with her. Make sure to connect with her at theironjen.com. She's a very inspiring speaker. So if you are a first responder, I would love to hear her talk at a conference or your organization. Make sure you reach out to her and book her to come to your next event. Also, if you're trying to build up a speaking business, she's a great connection to have. And so don't be a stranger and make sure that you reach out to her. As always, when I end my show, I encourage those who feel stuck, who are afraid, who are overwhelmed, who don't know what to do, that clarity does not come from analyzing, pondering, thinking, planning. It comes from you going out there and doing something. So just get out there and do something. I want to hear your successes. Let me know what you think. Let me know the victories. Let me know your stuck points. Let me know your feelings, whatever it is. I love to hear from you. So come on over to movedbypurpose.net. Leave a comment. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, and write a review in iTunes. And I will talk to you all next week.